Welcome to the 8th grade Math Homework Helper Series. Tonight's homework is NS-6, Fractions. We'll start with question number 2. State whether the number below is rational or irrational and explain why. If the number is irrational, state which two whole numbers it lies between. So the first number that we have to look at is the square root of 13. And I've included the table here to take a look at the different square roots. And as you can see on this table, 13 is not a perfect square. So it falls somewhere in between 9, square root of 9, square root of 16, so it falls somewhere between 3 and 4. So if it's not a perfect square, that indicates that it's automatically an irrational number because it would have a decimal that does not terminate or repeat. And the two whole numbers that it lies between, as we said, are 3 and 4. B, we have 7/8. Well, remember, one of the requirements for a rational number is that it is in fraction form and that the decimal is not a 0, and this certainly meets that requirement. So 7/8 is rational. Then we have the square root of 169. We can check the table. The square root of 169 is on the table. It's 13, which means it's a perfect square, and that would indicate that it's rational. The number 13 certainly has a decimal that terminates. D, we have 4.565656 ... So I'm looking for a pattern here, and I see that 56 seems to repeat throughout. So that indicates to me that this is a repeating decimal, and as a repeating decimal, it meets the requirements for being rational. The last number we have is 7.51511, 5 with 3 ones, and then 5 with 4 ones, and a ... indicating that this continues. And while you can see a pattern to this, the pattern is such that the ones keep increasing by one additional digit each time. And so that's not necessarily a repeating decimal, it's just an unending decimal. It's a decimal that doesn't terminate. And so that would be irrational. And if we look at 7.5, it's pretty easy to see that that falls between 7 and 8. Number 3, we need to explain why the square root of 40 is irrational and estimate the value of the square root of 40 to the nearest tenths. Well, as I look at the table, I can see the square root of 40 falls somewhere between 6 and 7. And more so, I can see that it's a little bit closer to 6 than it is to 7. It's 4 away from 36, but it's 9 away from 49. So being closer to the 6 than the 7, I'm going to say it's less than 6.5. And so my trial is going to be with 6.3. And so I multiply 6.3 times 6.3. I get 39.69, which is lower than 40. So that indicates that I'm going to try jumping up to the next highest one, which would be 6.4 times 6.4. And if I multiply that together, 6.4 times 6.4, I get 40.96, which is too high. So that's good. I've got either side of 40 now. And now I need to think about, well, 40 is closest to what? Is it closest to 39.69 or is it closest to 40.96? And so it's 31.31 away from the low end and 0.96 away from the high end. So that indicates that it's closer to 6.3. So if I were to estimate the value of 40 to the nearest tenths, I would say that it's closest to approximately 6.3, and it's irrational because its decimal value does not terminate or repeat. And lastly, we'll take a look at question number 4. Between which two consecutive integers is, in this case A, the cubed root of 7230? Well, when thinking about cubed roots, it's good to have a range. And so it's probably a good idea to remember that the cubed root of 10 is 1,000 and the cubed root of 20 is 8,000. And that's a nice big range. So a lot of the numbers that you're going to see are going to fall between these two, as does this. So we have 7230, and that falls in between, but it's certainly a whole lot closer to 8,000 than it is to 1,000. And so if the cubed root of 20 is 8,000, I'm going to backtrack just a little bit and say the cubed root of 19 is probably pretty close to this. And so to find the cubed root, I have to multiply 19 times itself, get an answer, and then multiply that answer by 19 again. And that gives me 6,859. Now, 6,859 is too low. It's lower than 7,230. But it does fall in between 20 and 19. So the two consecutive integers that the cubed root of 7,230 fall between are 19 and 20. Please use the work that was done for you tonight to help you to solve any additional problems that are on your homework. And remember, the key to success in math is not only working hard, but working smart.